So I just wanted to give a quick recap for folks in the event they aren't familiar with Filecoin. So Filecoin, we're building a decentralized storage layer. And the way that we like to think about this is our mission as we're building Filecoin is to build a decentralized, efficient, and robust foundation for humanity's information. And so just to quickly touch on what does Filecoin actually enable? As we're a decentralized market for storage, what we enable is basically a totally decentralized process for clients to find miners, miners being storage providers, and negotiate a set of preferences that they have in order to actually make deals and store data on our network. So clients functionally are able to query, find miners who have pricing and geographies that they care about. They can then specify how they want their data to be stored with multiple copies, with fast retrieval. Clients get guarantees from the protocol itself about the integrity and the availability of that data. There's cryptographic proofs to ensure that for whatever data is put on the network, there's a requisite number of unique copies as specified by the client. It also gives you guarantees about the existence of that data over a period of time. And it also gives clients flexibility in how they want to pay for these services. And so to give some context, Filecoin launched its mainnet about 5 weeks ago, though we've been running our beta since early March. And so where we are today is we actually have surpassed an exabyte of storage on the network. And we're really excited to be a part of this program to basically help incentivize new use cases and things that can be built to help bridge these two ecosystems closer together. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time giving a little bit of color on what's actually been going on inside of IPFS and Filecoin land and things that might be useful and interesting as primitives that you can actually take advantage of as the folks in this challenge start trying to brainstorm interesting tools and things that could be built. So the first thing I wanted to call attention to is Filecoin has launched what's called Filecoin Plus, which is currently in beta, but it's something that anyone could actually use. This is one of the interesting ways in which clients can have flexibility in how they actually pay for storage on our network. So the way that Filecoin Plus works is, well, it's easy to describe the first version of how does Filecoin work as a default. If a client wants to store data with a miner, a client can acquire Filecoin, they can pay the miner in Filecoin for those services, and transaction is done. With Filecoin Plus, what can happen is a client can apply for what's called data cap from notaries. Notaries are trusted entities that are selected by the community to help incentivize new use cases and help grow the network, and they act as fiduciaries. Data cap is spendable only inside of the Filecoin ecosystem and is allocated by notaries to clients. So the actual flow of how this works is a client can approach a notary and request data cap. The notary can review the client's request. They can give data cap back to the client. The client can spend that data cap as a form of payment for their storage deals. And when miners accept deals that are paid for with data cap, the miner will get a higher deal quality multiplier, which in turn will pay them in the form of higher block rewards. It's important to note the way that this mechanism works is if you're asking for a small amount of data cap, it's essentially free. There will be a large slate of automatic notaries, people who will just hand out data cap if you're trying to store small amounts of data. But the really interesting thing here is for very large data sets or for data sets that could grow over time, there's tooling in place that would enable someone to get terabytes or potentially petabytes of social trust in order to substantially reduce the cost of storing large-scale data sets on the network. And so the important thing to take away from this is Filecoin Plus is a component of the Filecoin economy that should make it substantially cheaper for real clients to actually store things on our network. It's totally optional. If people want to use Phil, they can. But for folks who are trying to build and think of new use cases, this might be a really interesting feature to take advantage of. And the other thing I wanted to really call out is for folks who are more familiar with IPFS, another protocol from Protocol Labs, there's already tooling that exists to make running IPFS and Filecoin easier together. So a team, Textile, who operates inside of the Filecoin and IPFS ecosystem, they've open sourced a toolkit called PowerGate, which enables teams to dual run IPFS and Filecoin, which can give some really interesting flexibility to take advantages of each of the protocol's specific advantages. So for IPFS, you have a natural bridge basically to operate with the IPFS network. You can get hot caching and quick routing. And with Filecoin, you can get a permanence layer. So if instead of having someone pin your content on IPFS, you can actually use Filecoin in order to get the same permanence and storage guarantees, but from a decentralized network. If you don't want to run EmpowerGrid as an open source toolkit, you could run this yourself. So if you're thinking of ways of integrating with Ocean, one option might be to build a service that actually automatically takes data sets curated in Ocean and hosted on IPFS and push them into PowerGate. But there's also Buckets, which is a hosted version that Textile offers that's paid that you could use as well if you wanted to leave the infrastructure management to others. There are other folks in other parts of the ecosystem who are working on other flavors of Filecoin-backed pinning services, but just wanted to make you aware that this toolkit exists. It actually makes it substantially easier to work with these two protocols together, so just make you aware. And so to then briefly touch on where do we see interesting opportunities with Ocean and Phil. I think there's actually a lot. In our case, we're really interested in seeing what sort of creative opportunities do people brainstorm between thinking about for the slate of data sets that are going to be curated, what are ways that we can bridge these two protocols together? It could be in the form of building infrastructure and services that will make it easier for people who are operating in ocean land to push things into Filecoin land and take advantage of the storage layer. It could be building out tooling and like libraries that make it easier as well. So like as you think from like maybe a data analyst workflow, how would you make it easier natively for those two to operate? And it could also be thinking of the reverse. How do you have data sets in Filecoin be served up and be more discoverable such that maybe you could have it operate inside of the Ocean ecosystem as well? So really leaving the door quite open here. Hopefully what we can provide you with are what are the toolkits, at least inside of the Filecoin ecosystem, which might make getting off the ground really easy. And I have a list of resources, hopefully Sheridan can help share after. But some ideas of how could you get started with building, how could you get started with storing, what are ways that you could get data cap if you want to give that flow a test, or even some sample applications if you're interested in poking around there. And if you have questions, you can join our Slack, filecoin.io/Slack, and then you can ping me. It's just my name, Jonathan Victor, with no vowels. Or feel free to join our channel, Phil Plus, for questions about verification. Yeah, super excited to see what comes out of all of this.
All right, yeah, John, thank you so much. I'm, all of the basic questions that I was going to ask you, you've answered. Obviously, it's great to have this list of resources. We can maybe share those as well as the presentation later, and maybe put them on the hacker guide on the Data Economy Challenge site, so that people can refer to that. With respect to data tokens, have you started to think about how those could play more of a role, or is there any kind of, let's say, insider tips that you might be able to provide the participants who are considering how to bring Filecoin and Ocean more together and leverage that data token functionality of Ocean v3?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's definitely interesting opportunities. I think really thinking about like where from the infrastructure layer, where are the gaps? The things that I'm personally most excited about are what are ways in which we can make that like flow much more simple. So I think the things that will be most inspiring are like what are the seeds of the ideas that will like reduce the cost for future people who are trying to like do things between our two ecosystems to make it much simpler. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that if folks had participated in Web3 last year, Juan sort of touched on this, where like, especially inside of this ecosystem, one of the things that's really tough is the friction as we try to like interact with these different parts of these protocols that are working on different layers of different problems is just that interconnection layer can be quite frictiony. And so the thing that I think will create the most leverage between both are places where we can abstract that pain away and make it easier for folks to interact between the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, reducing friction is obviously a focus for many a project, and of course this one's no exception. So, well, this has been really helpful, at least from my perspective, just to understand where you guys are right now. Obviously, with the big launch recently and what that unlocks with respect to opportunities on your side, as well as Ocean V3 on our side. It should be right pickings for some creative, as you put it, submissions that can leverage both projects pretty nicely. So do you have any parting words for the audience with respect to the Data Economy Challenge, and anything you might want to encourage them to look at before we bring the next speaker on?
I'll say I think there is definitely some interesting opportunities, and if folks have ideas they just want to bat around, feel free to ping me in the Filecoin Slack. I can also add my email to this if folks have ideas that they just want to like iterate. I think the thing that we're super keen on seeing is like, what are the crazy things that will come off out of all of this effort? And so, yeah, if we can help be an inspiration, at least on our side, I'm here as a resource.
Okay, good. Oh, there's one question that's come in from Rish here. There are, let's see here, you can probably read it too, Jonathan, but it's a question about the liquidity pool. Any plans coming up as a liquidity pool on Ocean Marketplace? Oh, well, that's more for me than for you. I guess that we can cover that a little later. I don't want to take your time away. Good. Okay. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for your time. Thank you for the presentation. Great to know that you're an available resource, and please do stick around and join the conversation